You know, all week long we've been discussing the political implications of the Times story last Sunday, talking about Donald Trump's tax returns showing that he lost more than $900 million basically in a year. Now, we're looking at the legal ramifications. Trump's attorney, as soon as that story broke, he sent a letter to the Times threatening, I'm going to read this verbatim, prompt initiation of appropriate legal action against the Times. Times says someone anonymously mailed the documents to him. They didn't do anything wrong. They didn't surreptitiously acquire them, whatever else. They were sent with basically a manila envelope here with no name on the top of it. So they say, we didn't do anything wrong. Moreover, they went to the attorney, to one of the CPAs who prepared the filings, and he authenticated that, yes, in fact, that was Donald Trump's return, one of the returns that he helped prepare. So if the Donald hypothetically makes good on his threat and sues, could this actually open up to even more problems? But let's first start with my world question, which is, what can or can't a media entity do in publishing a story that it believes to be accurate, but is of a private nature, even if they didn't acquire it illegally?
I don't think the Times did anything wrong if, in fact, what they're saying is true. They didn't just receive it and then just publish it, claiming it to be what it purported to be.
So you have to make an effort to authenticate.
There's no reckless conduct here. There's no reckless disregard for the truth. There was a search for the truth. They had it authenticated by the person who claimed to have prepared it, and then there were disclaimers as well when they published it. So I don't think there's a cause of action here. So I don't think it opens up any can of worms other than a motion to dismiss.
Let's say they didn't bother finding the attorney, the CPA down in Florida who helped prepare these. Let's say they got it and they said, boom, let's go with it, right? Let's say they got it 3 days before the election, okay? And it turned out to be misleading or even wrong, some of the information. Does that reach the threshold of reckless?
Well, it may. You know as well in being in the business that you have a source. It's an unidentified source, which requires additional due diligence. When you have a source, you have to corroborate the information to the best of your ability and then make a judgment call as to whether you've done so sufficiently. Here you have something just sent to you with no return address. It purports to be something that Trump filed with the IRS. You have to take steps to authenticate it. And quite frankly, going to the person who prepared it and that person telling you, I prepared it, this is it, because he's in a position to know, in my view, satisfies the obligation.
Now, it does beg the second question. Trump has threatened to sue.
Everybody.
Very rarely does he sue, follow through it. And when he has, we've had a few examples where it's opened him up to some embarrassing information, including through, obviously, discovery. Let's say he followed through in his threat here. And again, the source of the story is about his tax returns and saying that the Times basically printed both private material that he's representing was incomplete or at least misleading. I would think, tell me if I'm wrong here, Times says, come get some, because now we're going to have discovery, and now I want to see all your returns. If you're alleging I did something wrong, prove it. I would like to prove, in fact, that there's even more to it. It could have even been worse if, in fact, we had all the documents, we didn't do anything wrong. Does he open himself up to exposure this way?
Right. When you bring a lawsuit, you open yourself up to discovery, things that are relevant. But, you know, this case that he's talking about bringing a lawsuit, this goes back to well-settled Supreme Court cases, starting with the Pentagon Papers, talking about, you know, he's a public figure. You know, the Pentagon Papers said you can basically, you can't have prior restraint. They can publish it, but they could still be liable under the Espionage Act for prosecution. And there's been recently a case that's saying that with a public figure, if it goes to information that is relevant to the public, that's something that you can't. They can publish it even if they know it was, you know, taken surreptitiously. So I think that Donald Trump, I'm sure he has good lawyers. They're going to talk to him and say, listen, not only aren't you going to be successful, but you're going to also open yourself up. And the first thing that people will ask for is probably his tax returns. And he'll probably have to turn over them. Right. So the whole thing is going nowhere, I think.
And I think you're right here. I'm curious, if something like this happened, and let's say Trump believes, my God, they got it wrong. I don't care who they checked with. They didn't check with me. And more than that, I've been maligned. Can that case be fast-tracked given that we have a November election? I know I'm 2 steps into my hypothetical, but I'm just curious. When somebody says, most famously, where do I go to get my reputation back? When there's a date attached to it, if you're a political candidate or if that you're up for a key position or whatever else, and then you have this hanging over you, can you fast-track it?
Well, it's not going to be any way you can fast track it in order to beat November. So it's just too quick. By the
Well,
time
let's
you
say
even
it was
get
3 months away.
even if it was 3 months away, in order to get to an actual get the case before a trier of fact, a judge or a jury, there's no way that's happening in 3 months.
Even on a fast track.
Even on a fast track. And the other issue is I think that the person who may have some liability here could be the CPA, because the CPA has confidentiality, and by sitting there and confirming that these are authentic tax returns, he or she may be opening themselves up, just as a doctor would. And again, even Trump's doctor, when they started to talk about his medical condition and sat there and said, "Oh yeah, this is my report." Well, you know, you're possibly breaching HIPAA violation, having a HIPAA violation at that
Although I
point.
did think that Donald told him, please go ahead. And he told me that he was going to be the healthiest president ever, although he had no records to show that for.
It's going to be great.
It's going to be huge.
It's going to be huge.
And as a reminder, everybody, there'll be a huge debate this coming Sunday night, as I told you off the top. We will be here. I'll have the pregame with my panel at 8:30. The debate starts at 9. It's going to be a town hall debate. They're always some of the more entertaining, and it's never dull with Mr. Trump. And then after 90 minutes at 10:30, we're going to do a live wrap-up, and we'll be soliciting your reaction throughout, as always. Crazy season. Anyway, guys, I appreciate it as always. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
When we come back here, maybe something we can agree on in this neck of the woods, even from a Yankee fan. We'll go to Citi Field for a preview of the Mets' wild card game tonight. Win and go on, lose or go home. We'll get into that straight ahead.